All right, there we go. Hey, what's up? Welcome back to another video slash stream here on Free Will Photos. Now, what you're going to notice on the channel in the near future is that I'm going to have a lot more live streams, and that's primarily because I'm trying to get my business up and running, so I'm not going to have as much time to edit photos, but I still want to share content centered around ON1 Photo Raw and other editing apps. So hopefully, you guys find value in these live streams. And as I get a schedule put together, then, we'll be able to get more of you involved here in the community. Now, before I jump into the tutorial or the plan that I have for today, I just want to make you aware of two things. The first one, if you happen to be over on Vero, then, meet me, DM me, whatever, follow me over on Vero if that's where you're dropping your photos. I know that there was a poll earlier in the week where I was asking if you're using Instagram or Vero, and some people are using that. So if that's where you are, and I'm not telling anyone to run over to Vero or, that Instagram is dead or anything crazy like that. That's not what I'm saying. But if you happen to be on Vero, then meet me over there and let's share some photos together. All right. And then the last thing is, you guys already know that I am an affiliate for ON1 Photo Raw. So if you decide to pick up ON1 Photo Raw 2023 and you want to save 20% and help the channel out in the process, then use coupon code FreeWillPhotos20 when you check out. So let's go ahead and jump into the computer if my streaming software wants to cooperate with me. Let's hope it does. And maybe it does not. I am at the mercy of the streaming software, and I'm not sure why it doesn't want to cooperate because it's still streaming, and I'm not sure what's going on here. So I'm going to hit the button, and hopefully this will move us over to the computer here shortly. Okay, did you just wake up? All right, let's see if I can get us into the computer. Let's click that. All right, there we go. We're still live. Sorry about that. So here we are inside of ON1 Photo Raw 2023. Again, this is still the pre-release version. I'm just using it in a normal workflow. So my family and I, we went to DC yesterday and took a little bit of a trip, walked around, photographed some of the monuments there, and just had a nice little chill time out in DC. Now, with that being said, I created a panorama of the White House, and you probably already seen that in the thumbnail to this particular video, regardless if you're watching the live stream or if you're watching the replay. And what I wanted to do is kind of go over some of the editing tips that I would offer, which the first one is use panoramas. Now, I was out and about using my 24-70. Which my camera's still sitting right there. I'm not going to grab it, but I was using my 24-70, and obviously, if you are familiar with Washington, D.C., you're about maybe 3/4 of a mile away from the White House if you're standing at the Washington Memorial, and that's where I was standing when I took this photo. And I'll actually show you the photo that I took and all the stitches. So if I open this up, I was standing at the Washington Memorial when I took this photo because that was the clearest line of sight that I could get to the White House to photograph it without this gate in the middle, because we actually walked down to this area, which is right in front of the White House. And I'll see if I have that photo because I think there is some relevance to that. And you'll see that we have the World War II memorial, lots of Washington memorials, because that's where we spent most of our day. And then here's the photo of the White House where we walked up more into the gate area or next to the gate, but that's not a very appealing photo, I think. So I said, okay, you know what? I'm not going to get a good photo of the White House. And then, of course, when we went to the Washington Memorial and we were standing at the base of it, I was able to look across the field, and there you were, or there was the White House. So that's the photo. And, that's not an editing tip. That's more of be aware of your surroundings when you go out and photograph, because I think what you'll find is you'll have opportunities to capture the images that you want to capture if you're just looking around for them. And that's what happened in this case. So obviously that was not a very good, like the White House by itself, it just wasn't very good. So I wanted to kind of tell the story to draw the eye in. And that's where I got the idea. I can turn this into a panorama, and that is an editing tip. If your subject is not very well defined in the photo, or if your subject isn't very appealing, you can add more visual interest by creating a panorama. And that's an art form all in itself, so I won't get into that. But if you create a pano, ON1 makes it really easy to do. The reason I already created this one is because I didn't want the computer to slow down. But essentially, you take the base photo here, which is what I have. All right, I'm going to go to film strip because I think it'll be easier to show you. So this is my center photo that I use to actually stitch the image, or I'm sorry, it's over here. So I took a photo of the far left, and you see there's people in here, but we're going to take care of that in post-production because that's going to be one of the editing tips that I share. Then I went to the center where the actual White House was, and then I moved over to the right where the White House is a little bit more left in the frame, and I'm starting to get more of these trees and these other buildings over here. And then we have this photo, and you'll notice in my final image that I don't actually have the crane in there, and that's because I cropped it out. And then I think I even stitched in this photo as well, just so I had more space to symmetrically center the White House in the image. So let's go ahead and jump into that image because I think that is where we want to go. And this is an ON photo file. So if you haven't created a pano, I will cover that just briefly. So what you'll do is you will select the images that you want to create your panorama from. So we'll say that I wanted to create it from these 5 images. I'll select the first one, hit shift, click the last one, that selects them all. And then if you come over here to the button that says pano and click it, it's on the right side. You can also right click on the image and select create panorama, but clicking the button does the exact same thing. And what ON1's going to do is look at your images and figure out where they start to combine. And sometimes ON1 even leaves out certain photos. If there's more information in an area that it just doesn't need, it'll leave out an image. So don't feel like you have to take a ton of photos, but make sure that you cover the full range of the area whenever you're creating a panorama, or photographing to create a panorama. And again, this is the reason why I created it earlier, is because it takes a little bit of time, and it's not the most appealing thing to watch in a video, even if it were a live stream or anything of the sort. So hopefully that made sense. If it doesn't, let me know in the comment section below. And I'd also be interested in knowing, do you use the panorama feature inside of ON1 or any photo editing app? Because I think that is a cool tool that you can use. I've used it many times in Lightroom, and I use it fairly often inside of ON1, just because it does make it easy to create those. So I'm hoping ON1 doesn't time out. I'm going to click cancel in hopes of just getting back into the editing process. But I promise you, creating the pano is very easy. And if that's something you want to see a video dedicated to, drop it in the comment section below, and I will make a dedicated video to that, so that way you can see what it is like to create a panorama picture. Now, while this continues to think about either canceling or creating the wrap, or the warp, I'm sorry, got my A and R's mixed up. While it thinks about that, I'm going to get a sip of coffee. And yes, I am drinking coffee at 12, well, almost 12 p.m. On the East Coast side. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the next tip, which is when you are editing your panoramas, make sure that you are paying attention to all of the things that are distractions in the image. And once this loads, I'll show you where some of those distractions are that I think we can engage with or get rid of or do something about. It's just really crawling right now to get going. But hopefully this is going to help someone out there who shoots panoramas. And as you can see, I already started processing this just a little bit. Again, I wanted to save some of the computing resources that are on my computer, which is why I already added the Tack Sharp AI, because this photo absolutely needed it. So I had to add it, and it's over the entire image right now. I did not mask it out of the sky, and that's something that I wanted to save for the actual editing, assuming that I can get this to render so we can edit the image. But what we can do, let's see if it'll let us zoom in a little bit on it. Doesn't want to. So there's a few things that I want to get rid of here, right? Obviously, all of the people, I want to get rid of them. Using the retouching tools inside of ON1, I think we can do that. I want to get rid of these lights over here because those just don't look very appealing. So I want to get rid of them. Now, I don't know how well this is coming through on the stream, but there are some people down here. I'm not worried about them because I don't think that those will be a distraction to the overall film. And, you know, a trick to get rid of people inside of your images is if I had a neutral density filter, probably like a 5-stop filter, I could have turned this into a 30-second exposure or so. I don't know, like a longer exposure essentially, right? And as long as those people weren't sitting still and they were just moving by, they would have been blurred out or just non-existent because the camera wouldn't have been able to capture them. But that's not the case that I got here. And I don't know why this has taken so long to open. I promise you it did not take this long to open earlier, but this is one of the challenges of editing live in pre-release software and or just software in general, right? Not every program works the way that you would expect it to. But now that we know the distractions that I want to get rid of, I also want to remove some of the attention from this dead space down here, because the focal point, the whole purpose of this image is actually the White House. I don't need so much information or emphasis on anything else. So what I'm thinking about doing, right? And this is actually one of the tips when it comes to editing. Get your game plan before you start clicking stuff. Like you can do your base edits. Like I had to create the panorama and get the composition that I wanted, which is what you're looking at now. This is the composition that I want. Now I'm thinking of, okay, what is it that I need to clean up? What is it that I need to fix? What do I want to work on? And that comes down to getting rid of these people as best as I can without compromising the integrity of the image overall, as well as there's these birds up here. I don't think they add anything to the overall image. Trying to zoom in on them a little bit, but we'll get rid of those. And then also, I want to modify some of the color, right? What I'm thinking about doing, since these trees are leading lines in the image, once I get rid of the people, I'm going to use the select or super select AI to kind of grab those trees, hopefully, and darken them down so they become like a dark vignette line going straight into the White House. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing that we need to do here is get rid of these distractions. So I'm just going to click on the retouch tool, and we are going to zoom in. If it wants to play with me today, doesn't want to zoom in, let's try it this way. Of course. Sorry. All kinds of technical difficulties right now. And we'll start with an easy distraction to fix, right? Now, if your composition was not where you wanted it to be, you could absolutely just crop these guys out. But I like the composition, so all I'm going to do is click, and I'm going to let ON1 figure out what it should sample. I don't know what it's sampling over there. I guess it got rid of the distraction. And I think that works pretty well. Looks like I have some dust spots here. So we'll actually do visualize dust spots. And that's a good tip for you to keep in mind, is that inside the retouching tool, you can visualize dust spots. And now that I can see them, I want to actually delete them, but it only wants to give me the little hand here. And I want, interesting. Okay, so let's just hit done real quick. And then we'll come back and visualize dust spots. Nope, doesn't want to let me do that. Maybe if I zoom out a little bit. And now if we go back, and this is just a trial and error sometimes, guys. Does not want to let me get there. So, but I do need that tool. Let's see if I can zoom in again, and we'll come over here, and we'll go ahead and start taking care of these guys down here. Well, I'll worry about the dust spots later. So the way that I'm going to do this is use the clone stamp tool. Now that's way too big, so we'll just shrink that down a bit. And I'm going to start working in this area right here because, and I'll zoom in a little bit further so I can really start to work this bush over, right? So holding down the Option key, and that's probably still too large because I want to work in small areas. Holding down the Option key, I'll come to about here, and that's where I'm going to sample, and I'll just start painting. And as long as you have your feather up to 100%, it should start to blend pretty decently. So, and then we'll stop there, and then I'll resample about there. And, you know, this doesn't have to be the most perfect detail work. This just needs to be good enough so that you can not have those distractions. And this is usually in the editing session or edited versions where I just speed through a lot of this stuff. But since this is live, I'm not able to speed through it. So you kind of see how this works in real time. Now, if you're watching this on the replay, then please, by all means, feel free to jump ahead. And if I get around to being able to make some chapter markers, then I will. So that way you can really jump ahead a lot easier. Now, what I'm going to do is make my brush size a little bit larger, because I've gotten to a point where I think it's okay if this isn't absolutely perfect. There's no straight lines that need to be taken into consideration. So I'm actually going to start working on getting rid of this guy. And because this is actual foliage, it doesn't have to be the most perfect selections that you're painting out, because when you're zoomed out, unless like there's a huge discoloration issue, but again, I already told you what my plan was for this area, which is going to help mitigate some of those issues. But as you can see, I'm doing as good of a job as I can. And this is definitely a more in-depth type of edit. So, and I think this will match the best. So we'll come over here and we'll start getting rid of this guy. And now he's gone, right? Or those two people. So now we'll scoot over and we'll start getting rid of some of this stuff. So we'll come here and I'm just going to come straight up, or actually we'll grab this and come down, and I need to resample, get this over here, grab that up here. And this is where you would also just put on some nice music and you just chill out and jam to whatever music you want to. And you just start to remove all of these little nuances. And I'm not going to do the best job here because I don't want to waste your guys' time. So, and you can make your brush size larger as well. Which I will do here in a second. Oh, now I'm starting to paint in that person. So I need to resample. I think I'll take this sample and we'll paint that out. And we'll come over here. Now, mind you, if you're doing this for photojournalism type stuff, you do not want to do this. This is a big no-no from what I understand. I'm not a photojournalist, so I don't fully know. So yeah, now here's, why did you not give me the hand? Let me undo that because I don't want that. I wanted to move this back into the center here. And what I'm going to do is sample. And of course, that doesn't want to let me sample. So let me hit done, because I want to save my work. One of the worst things that could happen when you are editing a photo like this is your work doesn't get saved. And for some reason, ON1 is just doing its own thing here. And this is the challenge sometimes, but you know, just look at how well, like how good this looks over here. You wouldn't even be able to tell that there were people over in this side, and you definitely wouldn't be able to tell that there were birds up there. So that's a huge benefit, and I think that that's really cool. All right, so for the sake of this particular tutorial, and I'm not sure why I'm not getting anything else. I'm just trying to close out everything so that way I can, it's not letting me get to my other tabs here. And I want to save this because that's a lot of work that just happened on this image, and for some reason it did not save. So let me hit browse because fun fact, if you didn't know, if you click on browse after you have done some edits, it will save your work. like it's doing right now. So while it does that, I'm going to get another sip of coffee. Okay, now let's see if we can go right back into there because we still got some work to do. And I'm starting to see a little bit of a remnants on the left side, like we missed something. So let's see if I can get back into the clone stamp tool, and then we'll zoom in. I'll move over here. I think I need to zoom in one more time. Should be about 300%. All right. So we will sample from the bottom here first. Now I sample, and this is just my personal preference, I sample sources that are like right beside the source that I want to paint out, or the thing that I want to paint out. And the reason for that is hopefully the light matches better. That's my theory, at least. It's not always the case, and sometimes I will sample from other areas, especially like foliage. There's no need for me to be right there, but what I want to avoid is bringing a tree branch like that right down the middle here, because I don't know how well that would work. But what I can do is make sure that I have foliage all over there, and that works out pretty well. It could be better. All right. I'm not saying that that was the best clone masking or stamping opportunity that's available. All right. Let's go ahead and move over here, and let's start working on this light. So I want to start from the top here and work my way down. Again, sampling a source that is approximately the same, but will not impede. Now, what I have to be careful of, you see that the tree kind of shows through to the building there. I don't want building remnants, and you probably won't be able to tell, so that'll be all right. And then we'll come over here and come straight up, so that way that streak kind of just follows along the line here, and that is probably okay. So paying attention to what we're doing, I think you're getting the point here. And I did say that we can make a larger brush, which we will, because that's going to sample a larger source. So now we're getting back to resampling that light. So we'll make a larger brush and just start painting over all of this, because we don't want that light. Okay. And, this clone stamp tool doesn't work too much differently than other clone stamp tools. So if you've used one, you've used them all, I think. That's just my opinion. We'll go across like so. I'm just getting rid of this trash can now. And when you're on a horizon line or something that's straight, it is important to make sure that you line up those lines like so. All right. And it just helps make the overall look. And it's starting to resample that trash can. And I think that's the real challenge with using the ON1 version here, is it does resample the areas. And I think I can probably get away with that. I'm trying to get rid of this car. And now we'll get rid of this person. So first things first, we want to get rid of, or even the line here. So we'll go like that. And we'll just paint over and up. Okay. And then once that's done, I'm going to resample from the other side, and I'll just paint that like so. Come over here, and we'll paint this in. And this is where you can really start to spend a lot of time working on your images, because it takes time, right? So come over here and get rid of this person. And I guess we don't really need those poles that are going up the center here. And I don't think anyone will notice that the people are getting duplicated there. So I'm not going to spend time trying to solve that. In fact, there was a photographer or photo editor that I was watching edit a photo, and it was like, I want someone to tell me where I made a mistake to see if anyone could even catch on to the fact that there was a mistake in the image. And no one was able to find that mistake, myself included. And he never revealed it. So, it's just the great mystery of his work, or, that particular image. So I think it matters if you are, making super big mistakes. But if you're doing very minor mistakes, I don't think anyone's going to notice. And that was his point, that no one will notice unless you tell them that there was an issue. Most of the time, most people don't even know that there is a problem unless you tell them that there's a problem. So just keep that in mind. Or if it's very obvious that you made a mistake or anything of the sort. So we'll grab that and start painting out right here. Or not. There we go. Okay. And that's a little duplicative, so we'll just go like this. And now it doesn't look so duplicated. All right, we're almost there, guys. Almost. I'm not sure why that crane is back in my image, because I definitely cropped that out in my original one, or at least I thought I did. And if I didn't, then maybe I intend to clone stamp it out. Okay. So there goes that. All right, we're almost there. I really appreciate everyone who is sticking with me. I don't want that little bump. So we'll come from this side. I don't want that. We'll grab this. All right. And there goes that person. All right. So now when you come to an area like the sky, right, you got to be careful with how you clean this up. And the reason is you'll get weird looks in your clouds. So I'm just going to paint over like so, and hopefully it doesn't look, you don't want to disrupt the pattern. Like that is definitely messing that up. So we'll come back over here and we'll grab this, and then I need to resample from the top. So I can click here. Now I need a blue sample. Again, I like to sample right next to the area that I want to correct. And then we'll fix this portion that is aligned with the building. and that sample was too large, and I may need to make a smaller brush. So this is where you have to make those smaller brushes so you're only painting in, and it didn't sample over here like I wanted it to. I wanted to sample that and then paint over and down, because that is more likely to be what's in the area. And that again isn't a perfect paint, but I don't think that's going to cause any suspicion. You know, you're seeing me do all of the dirty work right here that most viewers wouldn't even know exist. So if you got questions or comments, please leave them down below, because I love to engage with you guys and help clarify any of the work that I'm doing. Now, my brush is too small for this area, so I'm just going to make it larger because I want this to be almost seamless. And now I just got a little too carried away, but we'll just do that. And maybe even sample over here. The cool thing about clouds is that didn't come out the way that I wanted it to. Cool thing about clouds is that they are pretty easy to work with as long as you're paying attention. So we hit Command 0 and look at that. That is a very clean photo. Oh man, I got these birds over here, or this bird. Let's get rid of the bird. Can I get a like for just the work that went into that? But if not, I get it. So we'll go ahead and get rid of that bird, and I think we are good to go. I'm not even going to worry about the dust spots, because if I turn this on, you can't, there's no like super large dust spots. I guess there's some over here, but I'm not going to worry about it. All right, because I'm not printing this, and so I don't think those will come out. So the very next tip, after you have established your crop and you have the photo that you want, and I'm actually going to save this before I lose the credit on it, is you want to start working with your colors, or at least that's just my tip, is you want to start working with the colors. I like the exposure of this image. I think that it's going to need some more contrast, but we're going to adjust that in local exposure. So I just wanted to save those, so that's why I went back to browse. Okay, so this is where we're going to come over to effects, hit add filter, and let's see what Mask AI is picking up. So far we got some architecture, which is good. We got the flora. That's a good one because I really want that. And then we have the natural ground. We're going to work on that. We have the sky. And then, of course, it was identifying people. I thought we got rid of all of them. So I was hoping maybe the people would not be identified. But we'll go with the flora. All right. And we'll go with a color enhancer. Okay, so now that we have this all set up, I'm just going to hit foliage and see what happens. So that makes those trees pop, and they're really green. You know what? Let's see what happens when we add in the natural ground. Why didn't it? Oh, because natural ground and then apply, and it should be creating, there we go. So now we're getting like this more saturated photo, which may work out in our favor. I don't know, we'll see. So let's just go ahead and throw in some vibrancy, or some vibrance, and I'll desaturate it because I don't want the greens to look like super fake, right? Grass doesn't really look like that. Desaturate it a bit, and maybe even darken these things down, because again, I want it to be green, but not overly green. All right, so we'll go with that. And I'm not replacing the sky. I actually like the sky the way that it is. So we'll go ahead and add in a color enhancer for the sky specifically. And this is where using those masking tools, like that's a good mask in my opinion for what I'm trying to accomplish here. And I'm just going to make that a little bit more blue in the temperature. All right. And now that I've done that, look at all these extra birds starting to pop out. So now what I'm going to do is hit sky, and I'll actually make that blue there. And this is starting to, in my opinion, draw the attention where I want it to be. Now we have to go do some local adjustments, and we're going to get there. But the next thing that I want to do is add in some contrast down here in the bottom. So I'm going to hit add filter, and I want this to be on the flora, the architecture, as well as the natural ground. I don't need it to be anywhere else. I'm going to add dynamic contrast. And now we have that added. Now, I don't need that much contrast. That's just way too much. So I'm going to pull back on this a little bit, and maybe about 46%. That's probably fair. All right. So now that I have all of that said and done, I'm actually going to hit the letter C, because I don't think that this is the cropped image. That's interesting. It looks different than what I originally planned for it to. And so I will pull this down, and that gets rid of some of those birds, which is nice. And we'll go with that as the crop. So we'll go ahead and apply that. Okay, so now I need to make the White House stand out among everything else. So what I'm going to do is hit on local. Once that opens up, and I'm going to click on the mask here, and I'm going to select everything except for the architecture. So I want to select flora, natural ground, sky, and just because I need to close up those gaps, I'll select people. I don't know why there's well, I know why there's gaps in the middle here, and that's because, so we need to invert this. There we go. And then what we're going to do is paint this in over here, because I need this to be darker than the White House. All right. Because we're going to create this this exposure transition up to the White House. So everything else around the White House will be darker, and the White House will be more bright in the frame. So we'll do it like that. And then what I'm going to do is hit paint out, and I am going to just paint this away from this area. And this is where, you know, you got to use some of the legacy tools, if you will. I'm going to turn on the perfect brush here by hitting Command R. It gives me the perfect brush. And we'll zoom in just so I can get a more refined mask. So we'll paint right over the top here and really start getting in on these crevices and down the center here. Hit the letter O just to see what I'm doing. And I have a whole lot of stuff that's getting missed here. And this is the challenge with the perfect brush, and where I think with the Super Select AI quick mask, this is going to make selecting this particular building a lot easier. And I could absolutely just select architecture and then paint out everything else. But for the sake of time on this, I'm just going to paint over this and make it all exposed, or the normal exposure, which is going to draw attention to it. And then, so if I hit Command 0, it brings us back out. And you can see that this is much brighter. If I start to pull down on the exposure here, I'm starting to see where my my work is not so good. So paint this back in real quick, just like so. I think that'll be fine. And I think that gets us through for the tutorial purposes. Definitely something, sorry, had to clear my throat. Definitely something that I need to come back and work on. And what I'm going to do is just pull back on the overall opacity, because I do want this to be darker, but not too much darker, right? Now, what we're going to do is really start to hone in on developing that layered style. And this is one of those tips. You want to layer your light, all right? So I started with a darkening, so to speak, here. So now I'm going to add another adjustment, and this time I need to go and get that mask. That way I'm not recreating mask. All right, so I'll hit copy, come back over here and hit paste. So now what I'm going to do, instead of messing with the exposure as much, like the direct exposure, I'm going to pull down on the midtones, all right? And that's going to give me a little bit more of a deeper look. And I'll even pull down on the blacks in this one, and that's giving me that even deeper look. But I don't need this to be in the sky as much. So what I'm going to do is come up here, and let's see if Mask AI will allow me to remove it from the sky, hit apply, and look at that. Now I don't have that effect impacting my sky like I did everything else. All right. So if I turn this off and on, and I'm sorry, this keeps happening to me. Let's invert that. Now it's not in the sky. Turn this off and on, and you can see it's just happening in the foreground and everywhere that's not the White House. So the White House is starting to stand out a lot more. All right. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add another adjustment here, and I'm going to drop this one underneath my sky. Now, you should absolutely rename your adjustments. I'm just not doing that here. We're going to paste in the mask. We'll reset this because that's not what I want it to do. Instead, what I want this to do is I want to remove the structure around the White House and everywhere else in the photo. And this is, definitely a more painterly / stylistic approach. And then I also want to remove the contrast when I do that. All right. I don't need as much contrast in here. And maybe we can open shadows. No, that doesn't look too well. Trial and error, right? So we'll go like that. And now what I have with all of these put together is a little bit more of the honing of everything's dark except for the White House. Now, the effect is not entirely perfect, right? So what I need to do is come over here and make the light look a little bit better in effects. And I'm going to use a sunshine filter to do this once my effects module opens up. If it opens up. Oh, it is open. Sorry. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is click on sunshine. And as you can see, the White House is brighter, everything else brightened up. And that's essentially what I want to go for. And I just need to figure out what temperature I want. I know that I wanted this to be a little bit on the cooler side overall. So, and then maybe even bring down the amount just a bit. And I can glow this. So again, I'm regaining that painterly effect. Now I want to remove it from the White House a little bit. So I'm going to hit the brush tool and I'll bring the opacity down. Actually, we'll go about 85. And that's just because I don't need to remove it entirely from the White House because I do want it to glow a bit. But I don't need all of the sunshine on the White House as much as I wanted it everywhere else, because the rest of the photo started to get really, really dark, and I didn't want that. That's not what I was going for. All right. And, you know, this is still a more natural looking image, so I think that you can appreciate it, or people would be able to appreciate it. And then I think that is about it for this image, because I don't want to over process it. But what I will add is a vignette. Sometimes I click on vintage when I mean to click on vignette. And I'm going to grab Big Softy. And you see that this is like the final look that I was really trying to hone in on. And just playing with the size here. I think that works just a little bit, and maybe even narrow it in just a tad bit more. And then I'll pull back on the opacity. Now, you've seen me in the past use a local adjustment, and I'm just showing you that you could use the Big Softy and still get the exact same look, or a very similar look, or I'm sorry, the vignette filter, and get the same look. And then the last thing that I'll do for this, just because this is how I like to post my images to Vero, I enjoy putting a frame around them. So I'm going to pull this down to about -8 or 9. I think 8 works well. 9 is too thin, so I'll go with a -8. Just personal preference there. You could do whatever works for you. So here is the before, and here is the after. Now, what you're not seeing is all of the people, the light that I removed, and everything else, all of the distractions, because obviously this is not what it looked like on the day. This is just what I was able to put together using ON1 tools, and this would have gone a lot faster if I wasn't actually talking it through. And the goal of this video is just to show you tips and tricks that you can use in your own photo editing workspace or workflow to get your images out and into the world. So my hope is that this was of value to you. And let me get back over here. Let's hope this works. There we go. It did work. Hopefully this video live stream tutorial was of value to you, and if you want to, you can follow me over on Vero. You can see that on the screen right now. That is my handle. And then also, if you haven't already and you want to get ON1 Photo Raw, then consider using my coupon code, which is FreeWillPhotos20, and it's going to save you 20% on the standalone version of Freewill Photos, of ON1 Photo Raw, as well as anything else that doesn't require a subscription over on the ON1 website. So if you want to buy some of the presets or some training, you can use this coupon code and save 20% on that purchase. So just something that I wanted to share with you. It does help this channel. I get a small commission when you use that code, which all goes right back into developing stuff for this channel. And it's a really cool way to help support the growth of this community. So you know the drill. If you got questions, drop them in the comment section. I'm always looking to hear what you want to know more of. And I do have the wedding coming up, so that's going to be something that I feature here in ON1 2023, and show you what it's like working with a high capacity shoot that is very recent. So if that's something you got questions about, then please come and let me know. And until next time, I want you guys to stay inspired and keep creating. Peace.